Welcome to What's the Scenario with PLRB, where we explore claims and coverage scenarios relevant to insurance professionals. I'm Alicia Watley.
I'm Tim Havler.
I'm Mike Broad.
And I'm Michele Hunter.
Okay, Michele, what's the scenario?
So in this scenario, a customer, being the diligent car owner and maintenance-oriented person that he is, appears at his auto shop for a routine oil change. However, the insured auto shop failed to adequately tighten the oil drain plug, which caused all of the installed oil to leak out. Under the insured's opinion, this was just a routine oil change performed every 6 months, and there must have been a mistake in the drain plug tightening process. What happened afterwards? The customer's engine completely seized, and the entire engine now needs to be replaced. So this loyal customer, always engaging in 6-month oil changes, has now decided to sue the insured auto shop. And the auto shop, like most businesses, has a standard commercial general liability policy. And of course, based on this lawsuit, the insured auto shop is seeking coverage for the entire engine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a routine oil change turns out to not be so routine.
Well, as someone who doesn't know how to change her own oil, you're always at the mercy of an auto shop.
Right.
It's true. People did used to change their own oil back in the day. I know that my dad would. Yeah, those days are over pretty much.
Oh, I still do, Michele, sometimes.
Sometimes.
You'd have to sue yourself if you
Right.
left the plug untied, right, or screwed in.
Well, one time I brought it in and they said they had screwed it on too tight last time. So this time they couldn't unscrew it without breaking it. But they blamed the last shop and said, this isn't our fault at all. We broke the cap, but it was them. They put it on too tight.
Uh-huh.
That's what you get for not being a routine customer.
You're supposed to be loyal to your auto mechanic, okay?
No. I shop around with auto mechanics.
Safe, man.
So the first thing we look at is under a commercial general liability policy. It is the insured auto shop that has the burden of establishing coverage. And so the first hurdle for that insured auto shop is to say, this was an occurrence. That's what triggers liability coverage under a commercial general liability policy. And so that would be an accident or an unexpected event. That's how these policies define occurrence. Would we say that this is one of those situations? Accidental, unexpected, oopsie?
I would. I don't think their intent was to destroy the poor gentleman's or lady. Was it a gentleman? I don't even know. Or
it was a gentleman in this case.
It was a gentleman. Good. I didn't pay attention, Michele. So yes, this gentleman's auto, I don't think the shop's intent was ever to destroy the darn thing. So I'm sure they're going to say it was an accident. Of course it was an accident. If we did it even, allegedly, we caused this thing.
Allegedly.
Negligence. It would be an accident. Right. It would be
negligence
an
at best, probably.
Right.
An accident, an oopsie. They thought they did it right, and they didn't.
Right.
And they find out later the whole engine gets seized.
It was probably Tim seeking revenge for his bad oil change.
I know. Well, how much is a new engine anyway? Because I've never been in that situation where I needed a new engine.
Thousands of dollars, I will say. At a minimum.
They do it on purpose. They try
thousands of dollars. I mean, depending on the car, but yeah, a lot more than the price of the oil change. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
For sure. And so let's just say that the insured auto shop is able to say that this is an occurrence. Oops. The next step is to see whether an exclusion applies. But I will say, before we even hit that next part of the analysis of the exclusion, courts are split amongst the nation on the issue of whether faulty work itself constitutes an occurrence. A lot of jurisdictions say yes. A lot of jurisdictions say no. Probably more say no than yes. They have these blanket law cases that say that faulty work is never an occurrence, and so then we don't even get into the issue of whether an exclusion applies. But let's say we're in a situation here where we are able to say it is an occurrence. Then the next issue would be, does one of the exclusions in the policy apply? And in this case, what we would be looking at is the your work exclusion. And the your work exclusion bars coverage for property damage to your work, as in the insured's work, or any part arising out of it. So that would be the next issue, is whether or not the your work exclusion applies.
Yeah. So
Now,
is the
let's just
engine
say,
your work, Michelle, or was it just the oil change? So isn't that the
well,
question?
and that these issues are clear. Somebody's laying carpet and they lay it defectively. We know what the insured's work was in a case like that. Where it gets really complex and hard to pin down is when the insured's hands are doing an oil change, but arguably also touching the engine. So just as an opinion, if we look at the scope of the insured's work in this case, just the scope of what the insured was actually hired to do as an oil change, do we think that this ensuing or consequential or other damage that happens to the engine falls within the insured's scope of work under this contracted oil change?
I would say it seems like an inevitable consequence of what they did. So personally, I would relate it back to the oil change because it's like, well, what do you expect to happen when you lose oil from the engine? Your engine breaks down. That's just what happens.
I would be on the opposite extreme, Michelle. I would say their work was the oil filter and the oil. So that's what would be excluded, but the then resultant damage that happened to the engine due to their oopsie, Tim. There's nothing malicious here. Just due to their oopsie, that the rest of the engine damage would be covered because they weren't supposed to do anything to that engine other than remove some fluid and put some fluid in the darn thing.
Well, both of you have perfectly encapsulated the different courts' views on this
Right.
very topic.
So now we go to Alicia as the final judge.
Oh,
Alicia,
the decision maker.
Oh, you tip the scales.
Well, I was leaning towards Tim's scenario anyway. Sorry.
you two are so mean.
That the insurer's on the hook for the whole engine based on this failed oil change.
What the cause of what happened is a result of their work, the work that happened or didn't happen. Whether
it was a result of their oopsie.
It was an oopsie. Right. We all have to be, accountable for certain things. And if there's an oopsie, if I make a mistake, I have to be like, oh, I have to own up to that mistake. But I'm an adult, so
it may have been an oopsie, but it was your work that led directly to the oopsie.
My work was not to destroy that engine.
Is it a performance bond that these insurance companies are issuing when the insured fails to do the job right? Is it fair to burden the insurer with the insured's negligence in a case like this, where it leads to all this, like I said, consequential ensuing other property damage?
Kind of feels like you all three are ganging up on me now, and I don't like this very much.
Well, let me just say,
I thought Michelle just took your side, Mike.
Oh, okay, good.
I did.
Oh,
so
yay.
We did our internal polling here. I have to say that, Mike, you as a minority here do represent the majority position when it comes to the court. Yes,
ding, ding,
yes,
ding,
it's
ding,
very
ding.
that is very exciting. I mean, interestingly, like on the liability side, typically there's a lot of case law compared to like Tim's side, the property side. But on this particular subject where it's engine repair, where, their hands are kind of on the engine, but they're just doing an oil change, this gets very dicey. So the majority opinion is clear back from 1978. It's a Texas appellate court opinion.
It's a good year.
It's called, it's real recent. Travelers Insurance versus Volentine. But this is the most seminal or big time case that's cited in these types of situations. And in that case, the insured was hired to perform a valve job. And then what happened is the negative valve job, just kind of like a negative oil change, ended up also destroying the entire engine. And so what the court did is it posed this critical question, which insurers now rely on to this day. What was the insured's work product? Was it the entire engine or merely valve repair? Yes, Mike, you got it again. And so in this Volentine case, because the insured auto shop or garage shop was only really hired to work on the car's valves. Any other damage to the rest of the engine, which in that case was the whole engine, the court considered that other property and not covered. So in these types of situations, what the court is saying is that in this case, only the faulty oil change would be covered, or I mean excluded, and only the basically the failed valve job. Everything else is going to be covered. So that's yeah, that's the majority position. Now, I can even say my coworkers on the liability side disagree with that. There's actually a great resource in the database called the Coverage Contrarian, where I debate this very issue with my colleague, Frankie. But what he relies on are a couple of cases, and they're Supreme Court cases, but they do represent the minority position, not the majority one. And one is from North Carolina. It's from 1991, so a little more recent. It's called Barbee versus Hartford Mutual Insurance Company.
Is this the Barbee
that we saw? Yeah, the Barbee.
Oh,
See, right. Barbie just lives on. The Barbie car. You know what was happening in the Barbie car? Somebody dropped a spark plug opening. They dropped in a foreign object, which obviously created some problems literally down the road. And so what happened is that the court in that case said that basically the your work exclusion barred everything. So in that case, nothing covered. And another case also did the same thing. It's a Mississippi Supreme Court case from 1965. So yeah, real hot off the press. State Auto Insurance versus Glover. And they came to the same result too. In that one, a piece of metal fell into the intake manifold. I'm using these terms like I know what they mean. I have no idea. But anyway, it caused a lot of problems. And the court said, nope, doesn't matter. That was the scope of their work, which Alicia and Tim agree with. And everything's barred.
Interesting. I wonder if any of this case law would be updated. I mean, I don't know cars that well, but I do know between what was that last one? 1960. What was that?
Oh, yeah, 68.
Mm-hmm. To 2024. I'm sure there have been changes to, engines, valves, all of that. I'm sorry?
Yep.
Not a change whatsoever.
Not a change whatsoever. So you would think, what would have caused major damage back in 60s, 70s wouldn't cause the same damage in 2024. I'm talking out of the side of my neck. I don't know.
You do think technology and change would kind of affect the way this is looked at. But I suppose maybe at the end of the day, an engine is still an engine. And because it's like this gray area of what exactly are you working on, that is the reason these cases they don't seem to get litigated. You would think there would be more out there.
So, Michele, I have one question,
mm-hmm.
which I wish I had asked you before I gave my response. What if we take a step back and just say, okay, why is the your work exclusion in the policy in the first place? What's the intent? Because typically these policies would cover negligence, correct?
Mm-hmm.
But now we're taking a huge bite out of that coverage, saying if it's your work negligence, then we're saying no coverage.
I think a very good question, Tim. What the your work exclusion is meant to do is only cover what the insured laid his hands on, the scope of his work, the contracted for job. That is all it's meant to cover. So if, like I said, consequential, ensuing damage, damage to other things other than what the insured was hired to actually perform your work, then the exclusion doesn't touch that. And that's why this gray area of the engine and oil change or valve repair or what have you, that's why it gets dicey and complicated, because your work is limited to that contract of whatever the insured was hired to perform.
I think another way of looking at it, Tim, is say that, and why I chose the way I chose is maybe in a past life I handled a bunch of these claims and supervised the handling of them, and that's the way we handled them. But let's say the customer's car was something like, we had one where the fuel line was nicked while they were working on it. Customer drives it home, all of a sudden parks it in his garage, thing catches on fire, burns down the whole house. So you got the whole car that was destroyed as well as the house. That's where even we said, geez, we don't cover your work, which would have been whatever they were tinkering around in the engine. The rest of the car and the home certainly would have been covered under the GL policy. So see, you still got coverage under your old commercial general for stuff.
That's a good company you worked for then, Mike. That's right.
You're right, Michele. They are an awesome company and a member of PLRB.
Good.
Well, this was a great conversation. So, Michele, what can we take away from this scenario?
In other words, you want to end it and leave, right?
Alicia.
Yeah. Well, one, you just, like I said, not much case law on this subject, and what is out there is fairly dated, let's face it. So you really need to know in your jurisdiction if they're going to go with this minority versus majority approach. That's one. And then two, you really have to pin down the scope of the insured's work. What were they hired to do exactly? And then, of course, that'll affect the arguments for the majority or a minority position. But that's like, those two things are the most important thing. And then the third thing is just forego routine maintenance. Just take your chances and show up.
Right. Exactly. Let the engine die the old-fashioned way. Just and you know it's your fault, right? But I would say this, Alicia, folks could always reach out to plrb.org. We have some cool stuff in our website that they could research both on this and, as Michele said, there was a cool, in our prior podcast, our PLRB On Demand, there was a great coverage contrarian discussion between Michele and Frank where they duked it out over the same coverage scenario. So that's fun. But I also say, there's Michele right there. If you have this scenario that runs right through your desk and you say, geez, I don't know, am I in the majority opinion, minority? What do I do? You can send a coverage question into PLRB, and then a fine coverage attorney like Michele and or Tim, somebody's going to grab that, research it, and help you come to the right answer. Because that's what we do here at PLRB. We are your resource.
That's right. Please do that.
Right.
And we can find all of the information, the links to the annotations, a link to our podcast in the show notes. So you'll also find a recap of the key points from this episode. You can find links to our social media. And I suggest someone does this pretty soon, and information on how to submit your own adjuster story. We would love to share your story here on What's the Scenario with PLRB. And don't forget, subscribe and rate us. We'll see all of you. 5 stars. Of course, 5 stars. This is a 5-star group.
Exactly.
All right, we'll see you all next time.
Bye, everybody.
The views and opinions expressed in this resource are those of the individual speaker and not necessarily those of the Property and Liability Resource Bureau, its membership, or any organization with which the presenter is employed or affiliated. The information, ideas, and opinions are presented as information only and not as legal advice or offers of representation. Individual policy language and state laws vary, and listeners should rely on guidance from their companies and counsel as appropriate.